Hello and welcome to today's meeting of Democrats of Greater Tucson. But we do have our speaker on the program today, Adelita Grijalva, and she is running for county supervisor. So a couple of quick announcements before we get the meeting rolling. I want to encourage everybody to visit the Democrats of Greater Tucson website. There's a bunch of terrific videos and other things for you to check out. One of the new videos that I found most interesting was why I switched from being a Republican. So you can hear Republicans explain why they've come back over to the Democratic Party, or it came in the first place. Another one is a really inspiring video. Is called Why I Am an Arizona Democrat. Really delightful video. I encourage you to take a look at it. And then separately, I obtained a video of Joe Biden addressing Democrats in Arizona. So it's a message just for us. And so with that, again, I'm Larry Bodine. I'm president of Democrats of Greater Tucson, and I will be your host today. As you can see down below, there is a Q&A link. This is how you ask questions. So I highly encourage you to ask questions. A little bit of background about Adelita. She has been on the Tucson Unified School District Board since 2002. And she is now running for Pima County Supervisor in District 5. This is a seat that was held by the late and greatly missed Richard Elias. It's really good to have you on the program because there is a primary with two other candidates for this seat. Now, District 5 is a big district. It covers most of West Tucson as well as parts of Midtown and the South Side. Adelita is the daughter of Congressman Raul Grijalva, who represents Tucson on the South Side. He also served as a Pima County Supervisor and as a TUSD board member. So today, Adelita said she would discuss recovery for Pima County and the transition back to a new normal. She's going to discuss support and expansion of the Sonoran Desert Conservation Plan. And she's also going to talk about creating opportunities that our community and our economy are going to need after the negative impacts of the prolonged closure. And we have a special treat for you today. Adelita has put together a video addressed to the members of Democrats of Greater Tucson. It's especially for us. This will be the first time anybody will see it. And while the video is playing, I encourage you to click on the Q&A button and send in your questions. I've already got questions that people have sent in by email, and we're going to try to get to all of them. And with that, Adelita, please go ahead and start your video.
Good afternoon, and thanks for having me. First and foremost, I want to send my condolences to Luz and Emily Elias, the passing of our friend and champion, Richard Elias. Richard was a great supporter of the Democratic Party, a regular here at DGT, and a good friend to many of us, including myself. I just want to make sure that we say his name and resist much love. Thank you, Richard, for all of your service. My name is Adelita Grijalva, and I'm a lifelong Tucsonan and lifelong member of the District 5 community. I have been a board member for the last 18 years on the Tucson Unified School District, and I have been the director of Pima County Teen Court, a diversion program that works with young people here in our community who have had a little run-in with the law for the last 25 years. It is because of the passing of our friend Richard Elias that I am here, asking for your support as I run for the position of in the Board of Supervisors for Supervisor District 5. We decided 6 days before petitions were due that we needed to get on the ballot to support the initiatives that Richard held true: environmental causes for our organized labor, taking care of Pima County. He was our advocate on that board, and I want to make sure that we have a voice there. My father, Congressman Raul Grijalva, held the seat, left that seat to run for Congress, and then Richard took over and took the Sonoran Desert Conservation Plan and ran with it. And it is because of that work that we have beautiful areas in our community like Las Ciénegas, Canoa Ranch. That Sonoran Conservation Plan is the cornerstone of Pima County and why Pima County is the place where we all call home. I am a mom of 3. My daughter Adelina is going into 8th grade. My son Raul is going into 6th grade, and my son Joaquin will be starting 4th grade next year. And it is because of my role as a mom that I want to make sure that we protect this community. So let's talk about the elephant in the room, recovery from SARS-CoV-19. The Pima County Health Department is the leading health agency in southern Arizona. We've been told that the reopening and recovery into what our new normal will be a data-driven process. But recovery without equity is not recovery. So here's a 5-point checklist that I'd like us to talk about. So the Pima County Board of Supervisors has discussed this issue quite a lot. Are we ready? Is the timing right? And do we have the right precautions? So that would be question number 1. Have we seen a decrease for the last 14 days in new cases of COVID? We have not. Is our health system ready? Are we ready? And while we do have a little bit of capacity in some of our hospitals, we don't nearly have enough to contain a flare-up. Do we have, our hospitals have enough PPE on hand? Do we have enough support to isolate and quarantine those that can't live alone? That's the issue that we're having with a lot of our facilities that have a lot of our elderly community. Do we have contact tracing and strategies? We don't. And do we have mass testing implemented? This was an issue that I actually wrote an op-ed about, because while we had some blitz testing that started happening, it was all located outside of the zip codes hardest hit by COVID outbreak, including District 5. Are our communities prepared to prevent a new flare-up? Well, based on just a cursory look around town, there is not enough social distancing. People are not wearing masks because they are optional. The largest crowd that I saw was standing outside of a Ross with everyone all together and not practicing any kind of social distancing or precautions. Are we ready to establish and enforce requirements? We are not. And so while we have had some guidelines that I think are really easy to implement into our restaurants, the rest of the communities are kind of left up to ensuring that for themselves. And I think that that is going to be one of the issues that is going to cause the flare-up here in Pima County and in Arizona. Are there clear guidelines to help government determine when to reinstate stay-at-home precautions? I don't believe that we've had a healthy discussion about that either. And so I'm a mom, and I'm concerned that we won't be opening schools. Our school buildings will not be able to reopen if we have another outbreak. And so that's one of the issues that I think is really important to so many of us, and we want to make sure that our community is safe and healthy. We have a lot of recovery to do. Lots of things that we're going to need to work on to make sure that people feel safe enough to go out of their homes, to go back to work, and to get back to whatever this new normal is going to be after a pandemic. Pima County is an integral part of ensuring that safety. The Pima County Health Department right now is our beacon. It should be the department that is informing all of these decisions that need to be fact and science-based about our reopening. And I am very concerned, as I know many of you are, about what this is going to look like for our state, our nation, and our hometown here. Pima County is going to have a significant shortfall because of the repercussions to our economy because of the pandemic. And so what are we going to do to rebuild and ensure that Pima County is thriving again? We need to make sure that Pima County has access to the federal supports that have been issued to the state. Currently, our governor has released 25% of the funds that were channeled through our federal government. He's holding on to the rest of it for a rainy day. We need that funding now. What we need to do is work collaboratively with the city of Tucson and all of our other municipalities, get a strategic plan together, and figure out a way for us to rebuild. Our state revenue tax is going to have a significant decrease. Those funds need to support our neighborhoods, our small business communities, individuals that need the funding now. Holding on to it is not acceptable. It's not an option. And we need vocal opponents and stakeholder groups that are going to come together from all of our organizations. We need organized labor. We need our neighborhood associations. We need the city of Tucson, Oro Valley, South Tucson, and our entire community to organize, work together, and ensure that we have vocal support to move forward. We need to work on a Pima County budget that works for all of us, that doesn't leave anyone behind. We have to make sure that all of our communities are represented, from the school crossing guard at my son's school to the small business owner that is struggling. The Pima County Health Department has an integral role in so many services that protect our underserved. They oversee programs like home health delivery, mental health, oversight of nursing facilities, as well as providing well-coordinated public and private health crisis response. Pima County is home to so many beautiful areas that are protected by the Sonoran Desert Conservation Plan. One of its greatest advocates was Richard Elias. What we need to do is remember that we have to find that balance between growth and preservation. And it is one of the greatest reasons why people come to Pima County, why Tucson is still my home. It's because we can walk out, drive out of the middle of downtown, which looks very metropolitan, and 10 minutes later be at Star Pass in one of the most beautiful areas that exists. And so our tourism and much of our economic stimulus is tied to people coming to look at what we have, and we have to protect it. We also have to invest in our neighborhoods. As we continue to rebuild and come out from this pandemic, it's important for us to balance growth with our natural resources. We're in the desert. We have to protect our water supply for generations to come. We've been talking about Pima County's wonderful resources, but its greatest resource is its people. I've had the opportunity to work with people that are striving to make our community better as long as I can remember. People that I've learned from, that have advised me, that have given me opportunities, and that have pushed me to do better. These are the things that we have to do in order to make our voice heard and our environment better. Democrats are about the people and working for the people. And I know that politician has an ugly word, but what it is public service. Service does not mean you have to have an elected office. Service are the people like my Nino, Frank de la Cruz, who helped so many candidates every day, like Alice Papson, who tried to make sure that her voice was heard in a way that made you understand her perspective and made you a believer. All of us have had those interactions during marches, while we're picketing, while we're going door to door supporting our favorite candidates who we know will be wonderful advocates for us and a voice. And that's what I'd like to be for you. I'd like to continue the opportunities that I've been so graciously given as a member of the TUSD governing board. I've been able to work with thousands of young people, shake thousands of hands when I'm handing out high school diplomas. And the work that I do with the Pima County Teen Court, I've had the opportunity to mentor so many young people who are off doing wonderful things all over the nation and then coming back home to Pima County. I want to thank you all for the opportunity that you've afforded me. I promise I will continue to work as hard as I can to be your voice and your advocate. There's no way I could ever fill the shoes of Richard Elias, but I will not let you down. I will work as hard as I can to make sure that I am the strongest advocate for the goals and values that we all hold dear.
Adelita, thanks very much for that really inspiring video. Really well done. I want to congratulate Ruben Reyes for doing all the hard work on that. And welcome to the program today, Alita. How are you?
Well, thank you. I'm good. How are you? And thank you for having me.
Absolutely. We've got a record audience here for you, so everybody wants to hear what you have to say. And as I understand it, you just want to go directly into the Q&A?
Yes, I would like to take a moment, though, to acknowledge what's happening in our community and across the country and across in other countries. We have George Floyd should be alive today. His murder was cruel and agonizing, and the only reason why there was any accountability is because someone was filming it. Racism isn't getting better, it's getting filmed. And so the vile disregard for his life was horrific and unfortunately not isolated. We have structural and systemic racism in our country, especially against Black people in our communities. This is a societal condition that is untenable. And it is not acceptable for me to worry about my brother, my niece, my nephew taking a walk in the park, taking a ride in the car, living their life without fear. And so we as a community need to do something about it. And we saw a community upset and angry. And while I do not condone criminal damage of any kind, windows can be fixed. Lives can't be brought back after they've been taken. And so I just would like to continue to urge our community to continue to have conversations. There is going to be a vigil tonight. It's been changed because of the curfew imposed by the governor. And so it will be at 6 p.m. to 7:45 at Dunbar, or you can join virtually in the safety of your own home by taking a picture and linking it on social media, just to let people know that we are in solidarity and working and outraged with them, with everybody. Our community is outraged, and I understand it because I am too. And so I just wanted to make a comment like that. I appreciate the leadership of our mayor, because I think that it's been very calm and important to keep voices at the table, and that's something that she's been able to do really effectively. And so I'm really glad for that. And I just wanted to make that point at the beginning before we get started. Thank you.
Awesome. Well, thanks very much, Adelita. Let's go right to the questions. I encourage everybody on the call to please use the Q&A button at the bottom of your screen to ask your questions, and they're coming in already.
Great.
We have a question here from Paul. He says, though the urgency of the George Floyd murder is our critical topic today, how can we help our own Dr. Terry Cullen and our county health department enforce the use of masks in our workplaces and in customer transactions?
You know, the problem is that our state has not required that kind of PPE. And so we're seeing it, and I think our community is pretty informed on it. And so we have governors that are making statements and then being taken to court. And so that whole process is happening. And in the meantime, the vast majority of our community is acting as if that, you know, there are no restrictions. We should just live our lives and go along. And the problem that I have is that there is still a serious, significant issue. We had to cancel our graduation for our high school students that we were working with the Tucson Convention Center because of its sheer size and the ability for us to separate out guests that were going to be coming to watch our graduates. We were limiting the number of guests that every graduate could have, and the Pima County Health Department couldn't approve the plan because we're expecting a spike in cases. the second week of June. And so I just don't see that that information is getting out there, because when I walk out of my home in a mask, people look at me like I'm the anomaly. This is not something that is everyone is doing. And I think that we really need to look at how safe we are being. This community was quiet when we were in quarantine. And now that we've moved out and trying to reestablish our new normal, the new normal is looking just like the old normal, except that if we don't do some really significant changes in the way we are conducting ourselves as individuals, the problem will be that we won't be able to open school. Even though the governor says we're going to open school, we've already heard in the Tusd community from hundreds of parents that said, I do not feel safe sending my child to school, so what other options do we have? We just received some guidelines today from our superintendent Hoffman about what reopening should look like, and we still don't know. This is a changing situation that's happening day to day, and so we have to be flexible enough to look at that, but we have to plan ahead. And a combination of those combination of online and in person is probably going to be our reality. Whether the state is going to fund us full funding for an online program, I mean, this is going to be catastrophic for a lot of our school systems. And so we really need some clear guidance, and we quite frankly don't have it.
All right, we've got another question. This one comes in from Margarita, and she asks, what is your position on allowing more county workers to work remotely? How do you ensure that this does not only favor white collar workers and those with access to childcare?
Yeah, working from home has advantages beyond this pandemic. I think that that is part of the new normal, to look at what are some functions that we have where we don't have to have people coming in to an isolated building, into an isolated department where 50 people are working closely together. Why can't we work remotely, where we have opportunities for people to check in when they need to, but function their jobs because they're professionals and we trust them to do that? We had that transition in TUSD with our teachers, and I think it worked really well. We relied on individual teachers with guidance and support to do what they needed to do to connect with their students. And in the case of the teachers that were working with my three, I was incredibly impressed with the efforts that they did. Quite frankly, looking at who in the county was able to telecommute, I could see there's significant disparity. More Caucasian people that were, non-essential that could work from home, and more of the essential were women and people of color. And so there needs to be a balance and a push to ensure that we have representation from all of our community, not just isolated groups. But the other is that we can also look to see what functions these people can do remotely. I pushed our district in TUSD to look at ways that our teachers' assistants and people that were medically fragile that couldn't nor did not want to come in to a building to do some of the things that we were having done, like sanitizing our school buses and our buildings, meal distribution. For some of our employees, that just was not an option. And so what they did is they called up students, were given a list, and got on the phones and said, how are you doing? Are you able to connect? Do you have a computer? Do you have internet? How can we support you? And that I personally received 3 calls from people that were not connected to my child's schools. And it was really reassuring. And I've heard a lot of positive feedback, not only from my friends, but other community members that sent me emails and said, I just want to let you know I received a call and I really appreciate it. I think we have to look at this pandemic as an opportunity to do things differently, because if we don't, we won't be prepared. This will not be the first isolated health crisis. We're going to have more. And so we need to be prepared for that and need to make sure that we keep all of our employees as safe as possible and communicate out what we can do better.
All right. We have several people who are inquiring onto your about your stand on gun safety. Steve, Christina, and Molly all ask about the illegal gun sales that are regularly take place on the Pima County property at the Crossroads gun shows.
Right.
Molly would like to know, will you challenge the state law that prohibits Pima County from having background checks at the gun show?
Well, I think that from what I understand, we have limited control over the fairgrounds operation. But with that, we did ask that Supervisor Elias asked for feedback on whether that was something that the county could control, whether we could require it. And so the city of Tucson required it, and then quickly the law changed. We've seen the state act very slowly on initiatives and laws that we really would like to see happen, but very quickly when things turn in a way that they don't like. So right after the city of Tucson changed their requirements to require and mandate background checks, they were grandfathered in because that happened before the law changed, but very quickly the state changed the law that would not allow municipalities to demand that. And so in a review of the law, we asked our current county attorney for guidance. And the feedback that came back was not really favorable for the county being able to implement those background checks. But quite frankly, I've worked with a lot of attorneys and a lot of different people in leadership, and I think it's an interpretation. And so when we have a new county attorney that is coming on because, Ms. Lawal is no longer running for office, and so we have two people that are going to be coming on. Somebody is going to be coming on to serve this position. My concern, my request would be right away to ask that county attorney representative what their interpretation of the law is. In addition to that, the county does not operate the fairgrounds, but we do contract with a nonprofit, Southwestern Fair Commission, to operate the fairgrounds. And so it's suggested that this entity could require background checks. And if they don't, that would be something that the county may decide that we don't want to work with that nonprofit anymore. And so I think that we do have some leeway, some ways to put in appropriate language. County supervisors have a representative on that commission. And so that would actually be a push of mine. Not only is it that they're selling guns, but they also sell a lot of propaganda that is racist under the guise of historic. And that is not something that our community needs nor wants. And so that would be a high priority for me.
Thanks very much. We have another question. Tell us about your stand on women's reproductive health.
I am pro-choice. I have been endorsed by Planned Parenthood on several of my campaigns for TUSD governing board. I was part of the board that pushed for the change to have comprehensive sex education in our schools. And on May 12th, we passed, without a lot of fanfare or drama, passed comprehensive sex education in all of our TUSD schools. My children have been in TUSD schools since fifth grade, or I'm sorry, since kindergarten, since they were 5, and have never had a lesson. And so this is something that will be systemic throughout our system, that every student at a certain period of time will receive this curriculum, and parents who do not want that as an option for their children don't have to. It's an active consent because that is a state law. So we as a district cannot impose that. A parent has to sign a permission slip and ask for it. So I think that I've been very clear about my position and unapologetic that I am pro-choice.
Okay, very good. Real quickly, a housekeeping item. As you know, Democrats of Greater Tucson requires that you use your real first name and last name to attend the program. And there's 2 attendees. One has just put her name up as Barbara, and the other one just says Gem, G-E-M. Please rename yourself or log out and log in and kindly use your actual name.
Do you want me to do that, Larry? I only did Adelita. Do you want me to change?
Okay. Well, you know, I'm just trying to keep this program from being Zoom bombed. And so far we've been doing this for 2 months and we haven't had any trouble, knock wood.
Yeah, I appreciate it.
Just a quick question from Amy. Is there a link to tonight's vigil that you can share with us?
I don't know of a link. I don't know if someone will be filming I know participants will be filming, but I'm not aware of one. If I find out something, I'll definitely share it on all my social media platforms. I do know that I received a graphic that if someone doesn't feel comfortable leaving their home, which I completely understand, and quite frankly, I think maybe the Dunbar Facebook might have some information, but I actually am going to have to, if I go to the vigil today, I'm going to be quarantining from my own family, because as much as I know that people are pushing to make sure that masks are there and that, you bring your own water bottle and stay hydrated, and it's not a very long time, there is no way that I can assure 6 feet separation. And so my family's actually going with my in-laws to visit with them, which I think will be good. But it's going to be hard for me because I have to stay separate from my own family for 8 days. And so if people are quarantining, and I completely understand and respect that, participate virtually. Take a picture of yourself with a candle outside your house and share it on your social media platforms. Safety is the number one concern. And so if you don't feel comfortable, then I would encourage you to stay home and participate that way.
Great advice. Thanks very much. Barbara W. has a question. She wants to know, what do you envision as the county's role in promoting clean, safe, and renewable energy in Pima County, and how would you go about realizing that vision?
Well, and I thank you so much for the question, because TUSD was the first district to go solar throughout our district. And so I'm very proud of that, and it's something that I continue to push for, making sure that we have, we have sun all the time. People come to visit us for it. And so are we using as much renewable energy as we can? Are we going solar? These are things that I pass by different county facilities, and it's mixed. You have some facilities that do have solar and others that don't. How are we utilizing the energy that we have? Are we changing out light bulbs and making sure that we have reduced water in all of our restrooms? I mean, those are all things that I know the county is working on, but it doesn't ever hurt to start asking more questions about it. How much are we paying in electric? Are we, because of our role with our solar panels, are we grandfathered in for a certain rate for the next 5 years? That's stuff that we've been able to do in Tucson Unified, and that's that kind of experience and asking those kind of questions are things that I would carry over to the Board of Supervisors.
Our attendee, Marion, has a question. What does being a TUSD board member give you in terms of the experience you need for the administrative duties you'll have as supervisor?
Well, so in my experience, 18 years as a governing board member, we've had some really significant issues. We'd have significant budget shortfalls. We had Red for Ed and didn't have teachers in our classrooms, which I supported, but was difficult in order to try to administer school. We've had, social justice concerns and issues there. We had big turnout regarding family life curriculum and people that were very against and very pro. And so I think being able to work with a lot of different people that we don't have to agree on every issue in order to work together to come up with a solution. And that was my experience that I had with family life curriculum. There was people that I talked to that said they don't want the district to be a part. They don't want that information going out to their students at all. And then I'd ask the question, do your children go? Because they had a very strong foundation in what they believed in and didn't want any exposure for their children. Then you have to ask, do your children attend public school? Do your children participate in clubs? Because you're going to be working with a lot of different kinds of people. And so that foundation for me has been really helpful. And then having to deal with some really hard decisions that, kept me up at night. And I have to do my homework, have to talk to people, get stakeholders together. I can't make these decisions in an isolation bubble, and nor do I ever pretend that I have every answer. But the reason why that I believe I've been able to be successful on the governing board, having won elections in 2002, 2006, 2010, 2014, and 2018, is because even if you don't agree with all of my positions, I'm always available to talk, to listen, and willing to work to come up with a better solution. So that's the experience that I think will help carry me in the Pima County Board of Supervisors. And I'm hoping that they're, and just looking at the board meetings, even when you disagree, that you can agree on another issue. That this is not, regardless of political party or position, I can disagree with you strongly and make that known in one vote, and then the next vote we work together. And I think that that is going to be positive, an experience that I bring to the table that's important. I've also worked with a lot of different stakeholder groups. You know, TUSD is 220 square miles. And so working with the Pascua Nation, with business communities, you know, neighborhood associations, that's all part of something that I've done as a board member and hope to continue to do as on the Board of Supervisors.
All right, thanks very much. Quick question now from Steve and Christina, and it concerns the opening of the schools in the fall.
Yeah.
When and how will you personally decide if your children go back to school in the fall?
Right. Well, we are going to have a real healthy discussion about that on June 12th. And so I encourage all of you to listen in. I'm also going to ask Dr. Trujillo to do some sort of video and get that out there as well. We just received guidance from reopening schools and what that looks like from Superintendent Kathy Hoffman. And I've had a cursory glance at it, but we're going to have a discussion about it. I just requested an item from Dr. Trujillo to at least go over, give us an executive summary of what that document looks like and what it means. As you know, I've mentioned before, my children have been fairly isolated in quarantine since this started. I've not taken them into a grocery store. They've not gone to a park, and luckily we have a backyard that we can play in, and they have siblings that they can play with. And the loss of not attending school every day was really difficult, especially on my younger boys. My daughter is a teenager, and so she has a cell phone and communicates a lot with a lot of her friends and is able to do that social interaction. While it's not physical, I think it's been really beneficial. Since the end of school, my boys have had a much more difficult time because they can't just go out and play. And so what I would like to see is how we are going to safeguard our young people. How are we going to make sure that they're going to be safe as possible? And how are we going to safeguard our teachers? And so one of the things that I think has been really positive is that we have sent out a survey to every TUSD parent, every employee, asking, what would you be comfortable with? And the options are from total online, I don't want to go into a classroom, I don't want to go into a building, or I want to be there, as soon as doors open, I'm coming in, or some combination. And so I think that we're going to be looking at a lot of different scenarios. How do we ensure that our schools are clean and safe? And what does that look like? Because we have had schools in other countries that have opened up and had to close up. We also have some schools right now that are starting summer camps because the governor said they could. And so what that is going to look like is interesting. Aside from trying to limit the number to under 10, what else are you doing? Are you having children take their shoes off? Do you have some sort of pad that you can step on that has disinfectant, so shoes are cleaned before you walk in? Are you taking temperatures? What does that look like? I know that some of our casinos have opened up, and I saw a video of one of the casinos del Sol where they have infrared cameras that are checking people's heat. Well, that's great, except that when it's 110 outside, I'm pretty sure all of us are going to be on the warm side. So I just don't know how safe we can make it, and we're going to have to work really hard to gain the trust of the community to do it. And so I think a lot of videos, a lot of conversations, a lot of looking at other districts and how they're doing it, all of that is going to be important. And once I can assure other community members that that has been done and our schools are reopening, then my children will be attending as well.
All right, we have another question from Margarita. She points out that there is some overlap between city and county programs. And she inquires, do you have any position on consolidating the local metro government? In other words, consolidating city and county services in some areas that might result in some savings for taxpayers.
Well, you know, we have had some really good examples of the city and the county consolidating services that have resulted in some savings. And so some of the examples are the library system that works region-wide, public health, which includes home health and nursing care, water and wastewater management. So there are past successes, and I would really like to explore some ways that we can continue to collaborate. I think that is going to be really crucial in working with the city and all of the city and municipalities that are within Pima County. Trying to consolidate those just helps us as taxpayers and helps our community, makes it easier to understand. And so I think that that is going to be really critical. But I do know that there have been situations, really recent situations, where the county is sort of taken the position, well, that's a city issue. And that's, we need to have a lot more collaboration and working together to ensure that ultimately the person that needs the services is getting the fastest streamlined services. And so if you are in a nursing facility and need help, and it is a county-run facility but in the city, let's collaborate and work together. There's no reason for us to be adversarial. Ultimately, the people that need the service are going to get it. And the quickest way to do that is what's actually going to be the most beneficial to everyone.
All right, folks, we've got about 10 minutes left. So if you want to get your question in, please click on the Q&A. Just got one here from Susie, and she says, good afternoon, Adelita. District 5 is a large district in the area and diversity. What do you think you can do to have more participation from all of the public, especially those of color and possibly questionable citizenship status? Now the gatherings are severely limited. How do you see these conversations taking place?
You know, I think that we've been able to do as much as we can online. I know that connectivity was a really big issue in Tucson Unified, where we distributed almost 20,000 laptops to young people and families throughout our county, throughout our district. And so trying to be more available, I think that it's important to have a person of color that is with my perspective on a board, because what I can bring to the table is the fact that this is something that we've had to do in Tucson Unified. District 5 is very diverse. You have Pascuayaki on one end, you have, the University of Arizona and everything in between, and even farther out in other areas. And so making sure that I am accessible to everyone is going to be important. I also think that having a lot of small group discussions where I go out to individual communities as soon as it's safe and we're able to have conversations, just have like a forum, just talk. Tell me what your issues are. How can I bring that information to the table? And then having a staff that also represents the diversity of the district that will also be out and getting information to get it back to me. I think that that's going to be critical. And I have always tried to be as inclusive as possible, and that is something that is part of my value. So it is not something that's going to change. And actually, I appreciate the question, because I know that once in office, people will remind me, hey, you said that you were going to be appointing, people of color to different positions, people from diverse backgrounds, and that is absolutely something that I'm committed to doing.
Okay. We have a question from Lucy, and she's asking, Pima County has done a great job with voting by mail. What is your position regarding an election done by an all-mail ballot?
I'm very supportive of it. I know that the city has been able to do it, and it really does, especially in this time of pandemic. I've been encouraging people to to vote by mail. I actually am an E-Day voter. I have always been my entire life. The first time that I was old enough to remember, my mom and dad, it was like a trip. We would go and I'd watch them vote, and I would, get to stand there and get the sticker that says I voted. And so I continued that tradition with my children and explained to them how important it is to vote. And also, quite frankly, how cool is it that your tata and your mom are on the ballot together. And so every election I've been able to do that. This, I won't be able to do that this election. I won't feel comfortable doing it. I also am very concerned for the poll workers. I used to be a poll worker, and we are very close together in close quarters. There's absolutely no way to have the kind of distance that you need there. And so as much as possible, I would really like us to reevaluate where we're holding the votes, because, for example, my site is Armory, and we're in a tiny little room where you go to vote. That can be moved into, the auditorium where they have the basketball courts, and just spread it out. And I want to make sure that people have access and can walk in and vote, but I really am encouraging people to vote by mail. The estimate that I heard for the entire state going vote by mail is incredibly costly, from what I understand. And so I was encouraged by notices from the Pima County Recorder's Office to please register, and they sent information. I also received, and it's actually the one I finished filling out, from the Democratic Party, that had my name pre-filled. I just had to fill in a couple other information, a little bit of information, and then the postage was paid. And so I feel that organizations are trying to help as much as they can get people registered to vote. And I really want to encourage people, especially this year, to do it by mail. I think it's just going to be so much safer.
That's a very good point. Molly has another question. She asks, what initiatives can the county take to help mitigate climate change?
Well, there's, again, going solar, conserving our water, making sure that we are monitoring emissions. It was really telling during this time where we didn't have people driving. There weren't any, everyone was staying home, and the sky was beautiful. I mean, there's all these examples, all these videos that I've been watching of, dolphins coming back. But I think that the balance of what we need to coming back into, the canals in Italy, I mean, it's just like our world is healing. And so I think that should be, again, when we're talking about new normal, what that looks like. I also think balancing growth and preserving our environment is going to be critical. We have areas that need reinvestment, and I think that we need to focus on that. That's going to be really important. We also have to balance the need for jobs and our community having to try to climb out from under what is looking like a pretty serious recession. So little by little, I think it's something that we have to do, and something that I can definitely work towards ensuring that we are cognizant of it. Because as I mentioned before, this is one of the draws to Pima County and to Tucson and Arizona, quite frankly. Our environment is what draws people here and what keeps me here. So I'm very aware of the need to be environmentally conscious and to take care of what was so graciously provided to us.
Sandy has a question, and she asks, how would you fund road repairs in Pima County?
I think that it's important for us to look at all of the options that we have available. The RTA was that those funds are designated for infrastructure. But as I've mentioned a couple of times, you have plans and you have strategic plans. And one of the things that you do in order to make sure that they're relevant and timely is you review them. And so we've had different opportunities for us to put out bonds for road repair. In my own neighborhood, there's been construction going on for 2 months and not a lot of progress that I'm seeing. And so I appreciate the frustration that people feel. My son, he had a friend who had a little parade, and we drove through a neighborhood that's less than a mile from us. And it was so bumpy that the things that we kind of taped to our car were falling off. And that's the reality for a lot of us. And so we have to look at the funds that we have available Is there anything that we can redirect to maintaining those roads? And I know the city is working towards that. And so for us to combine our resources and look together on projects that we can consolidate and hopefully, have that limited amount of money that we have spread across, I think is going to be really important.
All right, and our final question comes again from Molly, and she inquires, can Pima County create green jobs, such as being an urban grower or a water quality engineer or a clean car engineer? Tell us about that.
Yes, we should be. I mean, some of the best projects that I've seen in repurposing our closed schools were projects like Flowers and Bullets, that is creating a community garden in the middle of the Keene Neighborhood Association, right off of Alvernon. Monzo, our schools are doing wonderful things with growing fruits and vegetables. And so it is an initiative that is really dear to me, and something that we've been able to fund in Tucson Unified by working collaboratively with business owners, the University of Arizona, Tucson Unified, the city. And so there's absolutely ways that we should be able to do that. And I'm looking forward to that being another project that we work on, because it absolutely should be a priority for us, especially if environment, and it all ties into the Sonoran Conservation Plan, making every dollar stretch while taking care of our natural resources.
All right, thanks very much. We have only about a minute or two left. So I'm sorry, Susie, we'll not be able to get to your question. But Adelita, I wonder if you could sum up by letting people know how they can support you, where they can find information about you online, and how they can get in touch with you.
Thank you. And thank you so much for taking the time to sit at a computer and listen to me talk about why I'm so passionate and running for Pima County Board of Supervisors in District 5. There are many ways. It's Adelita for Supervisor is on, we have a website, we have Facebook, we have Twitter. Adelita, it's at Adelita Grijalva is Twitter. I'm not as good as Twitter, I have to tell you. So I'm working on that. I have Instagram, and I even have TikTok. So we are trying our best to kind of change the way that we're doing campaigning, because no contact means no contact, and I'm taking that very seriously. I was really humbled with the support in collecting signatures. In 6 days during a pandemic, we were able to gather over 1,500 signatures by word of mouth, talking to people, sending out video on what it was that we were doing and how we were trying to keep everyone safe. And that's what we're going to be continuing to do. This next week, we're going to be opening up the headquarters again to collect petition signatures for Invest in Ed, for Medical for All, and Justice for All. And so I would encourage you, we're going to be doing the same thing that we did for petition gathering for me, in trying to make sure that those wonderful initiatives that really would support so many people in our communities get an opportunity to be voted on by the voter. In addition to that, we've had a lot of volunteers asking if they could go door to door. And so the way that we're going to talk about doing that is no contact lit drop, where you're going into your own neighborhoods that you feel comfortable in and writing little notes to people, putting it on their gates, not knocking on doors. We are distributing signs, so if you want to be a part of helping us get those signs out to our roadways when we're able to on June 8th, please get in touch with us there. We also are going to have phone banking, and so opportunities for me to have conversations with people who maybe don't know me as well, or are on the fence about whether they want to support me. I would welcome the opportunity to have Zoom meetings like this, where we just have a conversation and answer questions. And so any opportunity you see to be able to be supportive, or to get other people to the table that maybe don't know me, or maybe aren't real strong, haven't voted before, or not new to Tucson, that kind of thing, I really would encourage you to please connect with me, connect with our campaign. It's Adelita for Supervisor @gmail.com. Again, on Facebook, website, TikTok, Instagram, Twitter, and just talk to us. Quiero oír de ustedes. Quiero poder apoyar las posiciones y los valores que están importantes para todos. Y ojalá que me dan la oportunidad, Adelita Grijalva, por supervisora en Distrito 5. Thank you so much. Thank you for all of your time, and I appreciate the opportunity to talk with you.
Adelita, thank you so much for coming on to our program. You covered a lot of very interesting things. You know, we love hearing from you at Democrats of Greater Tucson. A recording of this program will be online on the Democrats of Greater Tucson page tomorrow. Highly encourage you to visit the page to find out about Adelita and all of the wonderful Democrats that we have running for office this year. And with that, I'm going to end the program, and I want to thank everybody for attending, and we'll see you next week on Monday. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Stay safe.